tonight's guest, Steve Bluestein, Willie Hunter, and now, live from the Sunset Strip and the bowels of the world's greatest comedy club, give it up for star of the show, August Hamilton!
Hey, good to see you. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you all. Thank you all. Before we get started, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Comedy Store tonight. But for our studio audience, how about a big hand for the air conditioning, ladies and gentlemen? How does that sound like a good idea? Los Angeles, folks, is sweltering right now under triple-digit heat. It's just awful, but we're resourceful. We really are. We're using the heat right now. We're using the heat to melt down all the plastic straws in LA so they can be recycled into Kardashians. Now, back in the late 1970s, people used to say I was showing off, you know, whenever I would use a $100 bill for a straw. Turns out I was a cutting-edge environmentalist. Now, out here in Oceanside, California, you're not going to believe this, a school district just suspended its sex education program because of complaints from parents. The biggest complaint? The girls aren't swallowing.
God.
Jeopardy host Alex Trebek announced plans for his retirement this week. Who gives a rat's ass? Now, one man died. This is up in Fontana. Get this. One man died and 23 were injured this weekend at the Hard Summer Music Festival. I mean, what idiots! Why didn't they take the easy one? Well, get this. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, all right, at the Twins Day Festival this week, this actually happened. A set of identical twin brothers married a set of identical twin sisters. At least they think they did. I mean, this is the first time that Mormons ever thought that Lutherans are a little weird. So, nationally, President Trump said Monday he gave his entire $400,000 salary to charity. Out of habit, he denied having an affair with her. Stormy Daniels is in the news this week for being in the news last week. But this is interesting. Trump is up at Bedminster Country Club, the golf course he owns in New Jersey. He announced plans this week to build a cemetery for himself along the 18th fairway. You know, he's figured out finally a way to finish 6 under. Meanwhile, LeBron James founded a school for disadvantaged youth in Ohio. He then moved the school to Miami, then back to Cleveland, and now it's coming out to LA. Now, this is interesting on the international scale. Osama bin Laden's son has married the daughter of a 9/11 hijacker. Think about that. I mean, it's too bad we wasted all that public goodwill on drone attacks on less important weddings. Finally, my favorite news item of the week, okay? Amazon has announced they will no longer sell Nazi uniforms, SS helmets, and Nazi armbands on their website store. They're only supposed to be worn by Amazon warehouse managers. Well, we've got a fantastic show for you tonight. I'm so glad you're here. We've got one of the brightest and most versatile, smartest young comedians. Willie Hunter is with us, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
And then an all-time great here at the Comedy Store, the one and only, one of the founders of this stage that made this place great, the great Steve Bluestein.
Yeah, all right.
So it's so glad to have you with us, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. We got a terrific show. I'm August Hamilton. Welcome to the Comedy Store tonight.
Yeah.
thank our studio audience for being here tonight. They're in for a treat, as are you, the viewer. A gentleman who was an absolute angel to me when I first got out here to Los Angeles to be a stand-up at the Comedy Store, a real staple, a real foundational star here at the store. Great guy, tremendous book out right now. He's going to tell you about the one and only Steve Bluestein, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks.
Nice to see you, buddy.
Nice to see you.
Well, tell me about your book.
Well, the book's called Memoir of a Nobody. And I just sat down I sat down one day and I started writing because I figured I'm getting old now, so I have to, soon I'll forget this story. So I started documenting, and I sat down and I wrote for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I wrote for every day for 3 years, and I ended up with 700 pages worth of stuff. And my agent made me cut it down to 311. Yeah. No, but now I have 2 books.
Oh, good.
So I have 2 books. So it's out, and no one is more shocked than I am at how well it's doing.
All I see on Facebook are 5-star reviews for your book.
Yeah, I'm in shock. I'm literally in shock. And the funny thing is, people are saying, I laugh and I cry, and that's exactly what I wanted them to do. I wanted to see them. I wanted to see the whole spectrum of what it was like to be a comedian, the good and the bad.
What I want our comedy fans and Comedy Store fans to know about Steve is that Steve was here right at the beginning when Mitzi Shore and Sammy Shore opened this place in the very early 70s, and you saw Jimmy Walker, Freddie Prinze, Gabe Kaplan become stars out of this place early.
Right, exactly. When I first got here, Mitzi was collecting tickets in a little window in the lobby that's no longer there, and Sammy. It was basically a showcase for Sammy, and there were no shows, there were no lists. No. You would show up at 8 o'clock. And you would sit there, and Sammy would say, "Okay, you go. All right, Steve, you're going on next." And then David Brenner would come in, and he'd say, "Steve, you'll go on after David." And then someone else would come in and say, "David, you're going to go on, and Steve, you go." And so there was the audience never knew who was going to be on, when they were going to be on. And it was Mitzi who said, "No, we have to have a structured show." And Sammy would say, "How do you do that?" And she says, "Well, have the comics call in for times." "Oh, that'll never happen." That'll never happen.
Well, you and I were talking before the show, and Richard Pryor gets a lot of credit for the Comedy Store's popularity in the 70s, but
it was Jimmy.
Jimmy Walker.
Jimmy Walker. Yeah, see, I am old. Yeah, it was Jimmy Walker. Jimmy had just gotten the TV series Good Times, and he also, part of his deal was that the Tandem, the production company, were to hire writers to write for his stand-up. Yeah. So Jimmy would go from the studio and come here with 6 writers or whatever it was, and he would get up on stage but because he had the television show, he was the draw. And it was Jimmy that put this place on the map.
And interestingly
because the place was dying before that. Yeah. The reason that Mitzi got it was because it was dying. And, I was at the...
This was in the divorce. Mitzi got the comedy.
Right, in the divorce.
In 74.
In 74. But I was at the meeting in which Mitzi got the Comedy Store from Sammy. She wanted me there to be a witness that he said that he would give it to her. And I was there, and I saw it. I was there.
Well, when I arrived, Jimmy Walker was in full bloom as a TV star.
Right.
And he would work 2 shows on Friday night and in the original room, and 2 shows Saturday night. He would go over to Westwood. Do the same thing. He was the draw. He really was.
He absolutely was the draw, and he still is. And you know what's great about Jimmy? He's such a great guy.
Yeah.
I have a list of comedians like an email list, and if somebody passes away or if somebody needs some help financially, I'll send out an email blast. And Jimmy consistently will respond to me and say, or donate. And, he's just a great guy.
And he, along with Gabe Kaplan and Freddie Prinze, in your early days?
Well, there was a whole... Even before that time, in the 70s, who used to come out here and hang out were Barry Levinson, the director, Craig T. Nelson, Flip Wilson, Red Fox, They were all here in the beginning, and I remember the Comedy Store players. The first group was Pat Proft, Gary Austin, Archie Hahn, and Valerie Curtin. Pat went on to be a film writer.
Yeah. Kentucky Fried Movie.
Kentucky Fried Movie, Airplane.
Yeah.
All the Zucker films. Yeah, legendary writer. And so it wasn't really comedians who hung out at the beginning. Yeah. It was show business people. Yeah. And then because there were some singers that came here too. I saw John O'Banion here for the first time, and he became a lifelong friend of mine. But after Jimmy came, and when Mitzi took over, that's when it became stand-up only, and she created, some of the greatest.
Well, you were a working comedian by the time I got here.
Yeah.
You were right headlined almost. You'd be on right before Jimmy Walker.
Yeah.
And when you were in town.
Right.
When did you start moving up into Vegas? And that?
Well, I was working in Las Vegas at the Improv. Strangely enough.
Really?
Yeah. I was at the Improv. I got a call from my agent who said, "You're opening tomorrow night in Lake Tahoe for Kenny Loggins." So I went from the stage there to the big stage, and from that moment on, I just went from opening act to opening act, to be opening act all over. But
you were a pure observational monologist.
Well, yeah, I wrote jokes is what I did, and I always drew from my life. Yeah. In other words, when my ex was pregnant, we were going through natural childbirth classes, and we were learning about what happens to the fetus. And one night I got a heckler. I went to the birth class in the afternoon, and I had a heckler that night, and I stopped and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when the fetus doesn't get enough oxygen." And of course, that has become a standard put down.
Yeah. That's the night that line was born.
That's the night that it was born, and I used to get really upset when people who were opening for me would use my material. I used to get really upset, and then I would think, you know what? I can write material in my sleep. I don't want them to steal it, but if they do, then I'll just write more stuff. It actually motivated me to write different stuff.
Steve was so sharp, and wrote so much, he couldn't remember a line that I used to watch him do as a saver. He would talk about Europe, and he said, "I went to the German Burger King."
Oh, right.
Burger King in Germany.
Right, Burger King, and it was great. They said, "You will have it all way."
That guy brought down the house. And then in the mid-1980s, you turned writer.
Yeah, you know what? There's just so much road you can do. It's like I was in and out of town every 2 weeks, and I hated it because I'm a real homebody. It took an act of Congress to get me here tonight.
Well, I want everyone to know. I want you to go out and get Memoirs of a Nobody.
A Memoir of a Nobody.
By Steve Bluestein, because it is getting 5-star ratings everywhere. And this man's genius is continuing to be discovered.
Oh,
thank you. I'm privileged to have you on the show.
Oh, look, it was my, coming back here, it's like coming home. Yeah. Because this is where I started. The agent who saw me from ICM saw me upstairs in the original room, and he said to me, "It's the first time I laughed in 2 weeks." And he signed me in 3 days. I was signed, and that's when the whole thing took off.
But then 2 words are apropos right now.
What's
Welcome
that?
home.
Well, thank you. Nice to be here. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye. Steve Bluestein, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night.
Fantastic. And now it's next we've got a fantastic young comic, versatile, funny guy you're going to love getting to know. Willie Hunter will be here shortly. We'll be right back after this.
All right.
back. Welcome back to the Comedy Store tonight. I'm Argus Hamilton, your host. And for our next guest, it's a privilege to bring to you a guy we raised him right here from a kid at the Comedy Store starting about 8 years ago. Willie from Alabama, and he started out as a doorman and MC, worked his way up through the open mic nights here at the Comedy Store, and has become a tremendous success. He started the roast battle upstairs in the belly room, and now it's a regular gig on Comedy Central. He's also the co-creator of the Carmichael Show, a hit on NBC. He's a member of the Writers Guild, which means he's got drug insurance, ladies and gentlemen. This program got me through 5 rehabs. You keep that thing, all right? Willie Hunter, ladies and gentlemen.
That was beautiful.
Experienced. But tell me how you doing.
I'm great. You know, I'm happy to be here. I was wondering, I've never been on a set where there's more crew members than audience members.
Yeah, well, we're starting low.
Okay.
Our dreams are to someday make it to the belly room. Like
Grassroots, that's what this is. Grassroots.
You did well out of the belly room. That's our goal.
Yeah. Oh, God. I don't want to think about those times again.
How often are you doing stand-up now?
Not as much as I like to, twice a week.
Yeah.
You know, I try to go up and stay sharp. But as far as creating new material, it's been kind of a lull a little bit, you know. It's very tough to write jokes these days.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to offend anyone, you know. My mom's watching all the time. I want to make her proud, so it's like, you know, maybe I'll hold off on this tweet, you know.
I had to wait for my parents to both die before I would do that joke about swallowing a while ago.
They're still rolling in their grave.
Yeah, that's it. We hear anything. So tell me about creating the Carmichael Show.
You know, it was a wonderful experience. It started here at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
You know, Gerard Carmichael, also a paid regular here. He made his way through the system like every other guest I'm sure you've seen here. You know, you do the open mic. You sign up at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
You wait 30 minutes to see if they choose your name. They only choose 15, and there's about 150 people signing up, and you get lucky if you get your name chosen, but at the same time, if it gets chosen, you got to show out, you know. That way, next week, hopefully you get chosen again. But if you do good, you know, they kind of grandfather you in. They're like, all right, we'll put you towards the end of the open mic. You can go up in Friends and Family later, you know, it's the later part, and then you can go perform in the belly room, and then you showcase. And I was very fortunate to be on one of the last showcases for Mitzi. It was on tape, but it was the last showcase Mitzi Shore ever saw. And it included me, Gerard Carmichael, Jamar Neighbors, and Jerome Cleary. Jerome, I hope you're doing well. But, you know, and I made a friendship with Gerard and Jamar at that time.
Right.
And so I've known Gerard since 2008. He is more prolific than I am in stand-up comedy, and he soared immediately. And NBC approached him and said, hey, you want to write you know, you got a talk show, or not talk show, you have a, you know, TV show idea? And Gerard hit me up and said, hey, let's create it. And I quit working at the store.
Yeah.
That was when I quit, and people were saying, what are you going to do for money? And I said, I think we're going to sell this show.
Yeah.
You know, this is in 2012 when we decided to do this.
Yeah.
And we didn't officially sell the show until 2014. But made a little money on the way for attempts.
Were you involved in his HBO special that we shot here at the Comedy Store?
I was not involved.
I got to open for him, that's why.
I remember that, and it was hot in here.
Yes.
I came.
140 degrees, plus the lights. The air conditioning went out.
Was it you that mentioned they should turn on the AC for the second one?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because they were worried about the noise on the air conditioner. I said, forget the noise. Hot people don't laugh.
They don't laugh.
They don't. See?
It's currently 88 in here right now, if you're wondering back at home. It's a nice hot summer day in Florida.
Steve Bluestein says we're having a fire sale on jokes right now. So the hit show, it's still on, right?
It's not on anymore. Thank you for reminding me.
Really? But you kept the insurance.
I still have the insurance till the end of September, so I'm trying to go to the doctor as much as I can.
Okay. Well, now tell about the birth of the roast battle.
Well, it started with a couple of comics yelling at each other. You know, back in the day when I read stories about your day, Argus.
Yeah.
Yeah. People used to just fight.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, you stole my joke? I'm going to punch you in the face.
Yeah, right.
And that's how things ended.
The Wild West.
The Wild West.
Yeah.
But now people, they don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, they go online and say things. But there's a guy that was arguing with someone. His name was Josh Martin. And he was arguing with a comic named Kenny Lyon. And it was just an open mic. That's all it was. And Moses goes, you know, you guys shouldn't touch each other. You should come on stage and fight each other with words.
Moses came up with that.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes.
Brian Moses.
Brian Moses. Yeah, very funny man. You know, a good friend of mine as well. And they did it. And the first one, it was horrible, obviously, you know, because they're two open micers. But it kind of like created this microcosm type of situation where hecklers was welcome. You know, Earl Skagle would sit in one table and he would, you know, say his 2 cents on things. And then Merle Battle was sitting up there and Jeff Ross came up and Jamara and my friend Jeremiah Watkins, we decided to be the peanut gallery.
Right.
You know, like when a joke hits, we would wild out. You know, almost like Def Jam, but on steroids. And, you know, so we started creating bits. It was like an improv troupe.
Right.
Like if you said something mean about me and the crowd loved it, for some reason we would run on stage and pretend to slip on the banana peel or something, you know, just to really put the joke back into place. And then it just kept building and building and building. And
pretty soon on Wednesday night, it was, or Tuesday night?
Tuesday night, yes.
It was the place to go.
Yeah.
And it was an 11 o'clock or a midnight show?
Midnight show.
Midnight show.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen anymore. You know, back in your day, people would stay out to 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And watch comedy.
Well, what we would do is we would show up, they'd show up at midnight. They would wait for Paul Mooney to come on. And then Mooney would go till 3 in the morning. And then we'd just, you know, since this was not West Hollywood Incorporated yet, the sheriffs didn't care. And we'd just...
The sheriffs would be in the room.
No, the sheriff, they would. They really would. Because the waitresses knew how to play them. But it was up to whenever Paul Mooney got finished. That's when we'd all go home.
Wow.
We'd wait for Uncle Paul to finish.
One of my favorite stories is, and I have a gift for you. I'm going to give it to you right now.
Yeah.
When I worked here, I was a doorman. I sat people, but I also answered the phones during the day. And the phones room was in the old video room. You know, they had cassette tapes of people sets from the 70s, you know. It was like a museum. And I, you know, being 21 at the time, said, I'm going to take a couple of these. And I did. And the 2 that I took was both from you, Argus, and I would like to give them to you.
This is called an AA Amen.
Yeah. I've made a little money now. And this is
the first time I've ever been on the receiving end.
I have your Tonight Show audition tape.
Oh, wow.
And I have you on, I believe it says here, Late Show Rehearsal right there. And that's from '88 right there.
Well, if there was any such thing as a tape player anymore, I'd be touched.
You don't have a VCR anymore?
No. They laugh at me if I suggest it. But
hold on to it.
Paulie can use this because he's putting together, Paulie Shore's putting together a big, long
Are you regifting my gift already? Just like that?
I'm thinking of a way to get it on the air. And then I don't want people to see how young and good looking I used to be. You'll get that way.
Oh, don't say that.
But anyway, we were funny back then. I guarantee you that.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. I love the stories that you guys say when I hear from you. When I first started here at the Comedy Store, doing the potluck, hosting it, that was my favorite thing to do. I loved it so much. Argus would come and watch me host potluck. You know.
Now Mitzi looked at you as another Letterman. I remember that. Wow. She looked exactly like, and she thought that that's where you're going to wind up being. Letterman himself, we were talking to Steve Bluestein earlier. He was mentioning Jimmy Walker's writers, okay? David Letterman was one of them.
Oh, wow.
And Jimmy Walker would pay Letterman and Leno $100 a week to write these brilliant jokes for him, okay? And what Jimmy Walker would do is he would put them on little note cards, sit on a bar stool on Sunday night, and then just read the jokes that Leno and Letterman would write for him, throw them over his shoulder, and never use them again. Throw them over his shoulder, never use them again. And he would get up on stage every night and do the same act, but he would just pay these guys like welfare to come along. And in return, they signed on with Helen, his manager, and their careers would take off.
Wow.
Her guys, and that's where Jimmy would get it back.
Oh my God.
But
well, it's great praise to get, compared to one of my idols. When people talk about their idols, I like to think that most of my idols are dead, and that's the way they should be. Because I don't want them being alive, and then if I meet them, then I will learn something about them and maybe not idolize them as much. So I try to stay clear from David Letterman. I'm like, please go away.
Do you get that a lot though?
Recently, I've kind of like stopped watching him.
Yeah.
Because I was too influenced. When you first start, you gravitate towards a person that has the same personality as you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm kind of like this person right here. And
mine was Dr. Hunter Thompson.
Really?
Yeah.
And at some point you found yourself sounding like him. You're like, okay, I gotta stop.
No, Betty Ford found me like him.
Oh, okay.
So you're finding yourself on stage now.
Yes.
Now, do you think you're going to go edgy, or you're going to remain congenial? What do you think you're going to do?
I think I'm just naturally congenial.
Yeah.
I like bringing people together, and that's why I say comedy is tough right now, because everything's so divided. It's like, or you're on this side, or you're on that side. I'm like, we're all humans. We're gonna die, so let's be together. So it's very tough to write that type of humor now.
I use a yardstick, and it works in the main room crowd especially. You can be a little more pow in the original, but in the main room, that $20 ticket cover charge crowd, I say if Trump would laugh at this joke, I'll do the joke on Trump. And they appreciate it, and there's this release of big laughter because we're not taking sides. We're just enjoying a joke that he would like, or that CNN would like. Either side of the divide. If I look at it that way, I get to remain a conciliator like you are.
Yeah, it just feels good to be liked. That's why we do stand-up comedy. I hear about people's work ethic, and I do get jealous of that. But I was like, I was a class clown.
Yeah.
If I wanted work ethic, I'd be a governor right now. If I wanted to be, if I wanted to do some work, no, I cut class. I want to take it easy. I want to make jokes, and I want to keep it free flowing and fun for everyone.
I look at you as the career Obama really wanted to have. I really do, because he
doesn't look at it that way.
No, yeah, trust me. When he's on that microphone, he's good at those correspondence dinners. And stuff. He's a really good stand-up. He's so good. I think he looks at you like, come on, you're my second life.
I'd be happy if he looked at me. That'd be exciting. But I remember when I do an Obama impression. I've been doing it ever since he was a senator.
Do it for us. Do it for us.
Now hold up. I don't know if you guys are worthy. Now it's not about me. It's about Argus. We're on his show, and let's pay the man some attention. I was doing that impression when when I started comedy here in Los Angeles in 2008. He was a senator then. He was running for office.
I will never forget when John Kerry put him on stage at the Democratic Convention in 2004. And this is so ironic. He stood at the stage. He electrified the nation by declaring, there is no white America, there is no black America, there is no Hispanic America, no Asian America, just one United States of America. And I said, well, we showed him. Willie, you've got to come back and keep us abreast of your latest adventures.
Okay.
This is a guy that's going places, and I want you all to keep an eye on Willie Hunter. He's as funny as he is smart, and he's going to be around a long, long time. Willie Hunter, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good to have you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Wow, what a show. We had Steve Bluestein, we had Willie Hunter, and I want to pay special tribute to a dear friend of mine, Lauren Taines, who is one of the co-owners of the famous Barney's Beanery here in West Hollywood, who brings us our audiences without which we would die. So thank you, Lauren, and thank you all for tuning in. We've got a tremendous show lined up for you next week. We'll see you then on The Tonight Show. The Tonight Show, this is the Comedy Store.
Yeah!
Never turned 60. I love you, I'm Marcus Hamilton. Thank you very much.